internal computer system. He quickly became convinced that he had been locked out, and he panicked, frantically calling aides and allies to announce that he had been fired by the White House, according to 9 people familiar with his outreach. He had not been fired.
He had not been fired. 9 people. 9 separate people watched the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation melt down over a computer glitch and had to tell him, "You still have your job. Calm down." That's where we are right now with Kash Patel, the man who runs America's premier law enforcement agency, the man who is supposed to be at the top of the national security chain. He couldn't log into a computer on a Friday afternoon, decided he'd been fired, and went into full crisis mode. And here's the thing. That moment, as embarrassing as it is, isn't even the most alarming part of this story. Not even close. Because what the Atlantic's Sarah Fitzpatrick uncovered is a pattern. A documented multi-agency government-wide pattern that goes back well before that Friday in April. A pattern that has officials inside the FBI, inside the DOJ, and at other national security agencies genuinely scared. Not just about Patel's job security, but about America's. So let's go through this carefully, because what's in this report is extraordinary. The story starts with what you might call the public-facing version. Back in February, Kash Patel was photographed celebrating with the U.S. men's hockey team after their gold medal win at the Winter Olympics. By most measures, that's a perfectly normal thing for an official to do. People noticed. Eyebrows were raised inside the Trump administration, reportedly. And to many observers, it seemed like a minor story. But Fitzpatrick's reporting makes clear that was just the beginning. The hockey celebration wasn't the problem. It was a window into something much bigger. And what her sources described to her wasn't a one-off incident. It was a recurring, escalating, increasingly alarming situation. Quote, "The problems with his conduct go well beyond what was previously known and include conspicuous inebriation and unexplained absences." Conspicuous. That's the word. Not private, not discreet. Conspicuous. And then came the detail that I think most people weren't ready for.
That's separate from the operational issues that a lot of people spoke to you about that were concerns. You write, on multiple occasions in the past year, members of his security detail had difficulty waking Patel because he was seemingly intoxicated, according to information supplied to Justice Department and White House officials. A request for, quote, breaching equipment, end quote, normally used by SWAT and hostage rescue teams to quickly gain entry into buildings, was made last year because Patel had been unreachable behind locked doors, according to multiple people familiar with the request. I quote this, Sarah, because this isn't a discussion about whether you think he should drink more or drink less. It's a specific example of we needed to get Kash Patel and we couldn't get him.
It's a specific example of the alarm, the concern by people within the FBI that this could be a major problem in the future, and that there needed to be an elevated level of resources beyond what is normal. And I think it's really important to note that this request, I think, just set off alarm bells, and it speaks to just how well known this problem was, that it required, that this request went in and was sent up above. So yes, exactly. It is a sign of, again, his colleagues and others in the national security establishment who are fearful that this conduct could place American citizens and members of the FBI in danger.
What was interesting was how you started the article, in which you say, on Friday, April the 10th, as FBI Director Kash Patel was preparing to leave work for the weekend, he struggled to log into an internal computer system. He quickly became convinced that he had been locked out, and he panicked, frantically calling aides and allies to announce that he had been fired by the White House, according to 9 people familiar with his outreach. He had not been fired. The access problem, 2 people familiar with the matter said, appears to have been a technical error, and it was quickly resolved. This is interesting. Because there is a through line in your story about the fact that, first of all, if drinking is an issue, Donald Trump's not a drinker and doesn't tend to like that sort of thing. But you're implying that Kash Patel has some sense that he's on thin ice.
Absolutely. I mean, I think he is openly acknowledging that to people that he knows, people that he's speaking to, and people in the White House are openly acknowledging that as well. So I think that this is not, but it's, it's a very unusual circumstance and perhaps a very dangerous circumstance, because you have someone who is clearly feeling on the edge, feeling frightened, and that has security and other leadership, ramifications and implications that could be problematic. So it's a bit of a perfect storm of, you don't want your cabinet officials to not feel secure in their jobs.
Let that land. SWAT breaching equipment. The kind of gear used to enter buildings in hostage situations, used or at minimum formally requested, because the director of the FBI could not be reached behind a locked door. This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't an anonymous tip someone texted to a journalist. This was a formal request that was submitted and sent up the chain. That means it exists in writing somewhere. That means people above Patel knew. That means the White House was informed. And yet here we are. Fitzpatrick is very careful and very precise in how she frames all of this, which is exactly what makes it more credible, not less. She's not writing about someone who had a rough night. She's documenting a pattern that was well enough established that colleagues across multiple agencies had to start building contingency systems around it. You don't request breaching equipment for a one-time incident. You request it when the situation has become routine enough that you need a protocol. Now, Patel's team is fighting back. His spokesperson, Erica Knight, posted online, lawsuit is being filed. Short. Aggressive. And that is frankly exactly the move you'd expect from a Trump-aligned official who's been trained to go on offense the second anything negative comes out. Whether that lawsuit ever materializes and what it would actually claim remains to be seen. MSNBC has noted it has not independently confirmed the Atlantic's reporting. But here's the other dimension of this story that doesn't get enough attention. This isn't just about Kash Patel personally. This is about what happens to an institution when its leadership is compromised. Fitzpatrick's reporting describes a government-wide alarm. Officials at the FBI, officials at the DOJ, officials at other national security agencies. And what they're scared about isn't abstract. It's specific. Iran experts at the FBI were let go. Patel was questioned about this in Congress and gave what the reporter describes as a weak answer. And right now, at this precise moment in history, the United States is in direct conflict with Iran. Analysts at other agencies are watching this and describing what they see as a moment of weakness that adversaries may choose to exploit. One former senior intelligence official told Fitzpatrick, and I'm paraphrasing here, there's a lack of experience at FBI headquarters, high turnover in the field, and a workforce being asked to do more with less direction from the top. Less direction from the top. The FBI director, the person who is supposed to be providing that direction, was reportedly unreachable behind a locked door, panicking over a login screen. And according to 9 sources, calling around to announce his own firing before anyone had actually fired him. There's a word for a leader who's so scared of losing their position that they become paralyzed by that fear. And there's a word for what happens to the people underneath that leader. It's not good. Fitzpatrick said it herself in the interview. You have someone who is clearly feeling on the edge, feeling frightened. And that has security and other leadership ramifications and implications that could be problematic. That's as measured and careful as you can possibly be. And even with all that careful framing, the picture it paints is alarming. So here's where we land. The Atlantic has published a detailed, multi-source investigative piece documenting a pattern of behavior by the FBI director that officials across multiple agencies believe constitutes a national security risk. The sources are described as current and former officials who supplied information to the DOJ and the White House. The incidents, including the breaching equipment request, are specific enough that they should be verifiable. Patel's team says they're filing a lawsuit. The White House has not publicly addressed it. And the FBI workforce is, by multiple accounts, being run with less oversight, less experience, and less direction than at any point in recent memory. This is the FBI. This isn't a regional office. This isn't a minor department. This is the institution that is supposed to be guarding America's internal security. And right now, according to a growing chorus of people who work inside and alongside it, that institution is being led by someone who may not be up to the job. Whether Patel survives this reporting or not, and based on what Fitzpatrick says, both he and people in the White House already know his position is uncertain. The damage to the institution is already real. The Iran experts are already gone. The alarm bells have already been rung. And the breaching equipment request is already in writing somewhere. The question is whether anyone in Washington is actually listening. If you think the public deserves to know what's happening inside their own government, drop a comment, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to see it. We're going to keep covering this story as it develops. Don't miss the next one.